What it is, everybody? What's going on? It's been too long since we've talked to you, hasn't it? Welcome to Erik Karlsson Day here on Tealtown, USA. Oh my God. And we've got 11.5 million reasons to talk about what's happening today. If you weren't absolutely sure, you are now. So let's just get into it here. Oh, yeah. Okay. All the digital cleanup and janitorial. Okay. Welcome to Tealtown After Dark. Do us a favor. Subscribe. Hit the button wherever it is. She hides herself all over the place, but it's red and it's got, subscribe written on it. So that one, just keep touching it like that. Subscribe. Follow us on tealtownusa.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, all the social medias. Come to us. Do it there. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's talk about Erik goddamn Karlsson and how much he was overpaid. Go ahead, Puck Guy.
Oh, geez. Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to be back on the air. Also joined with Eric Landy. Of course, you have to have the two Erics who spell their name the right ways on this broadcast. It comes out about 7 o'clock in the morning. Bob McKenzie and Pierre LeBrun bringing the talks that Erik Karlsson re-signed with the San Jose Sharks, bringing in an 8-year deal with about an annual average value of $11.5 million. Oh my. I gotta say, they must think that DW must know that Karlsson's groin is going to be A-okay. Don't you think, boys?
Yeah, with that kind of chowder.
Well,
but go ahead,
this is something that we talked about when we spoke with Doug Wilson last year. That was one of the things that you discussed, is that it's different when you know when it's your guy, when you're familiar with the injury history. That definitely goes into making your decision about keeping a guy because it's your guy. Obviously, they know what happened with Karlsson. They obviously paid for the groin surgery, so they're aware. Hopefully, they'll fix something that Erik Karlsson will stop lying to the training staff when he's not 100%. But it still comes down to the whole thing of, look, if the Sharks didn't give him this, somebody else was going to. And hey, now, Burns, Vlasic, Šimek, Erik Karlsson, that's not a bad top 4 to have, boys.
Not at all. And to have 2 Norris winners and probably one of the best shutdown defensive defensemen in the league, plus an up-and-coming defenseman in Šimek, I mean, it's absolutely amazing what this blue line will look like. And there are some uncertainties in that sense. But if you keep the whole game together with Dylan and Braun, I mean, my goodness.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't see how Braun fits into the cards on this one, guys. As soon as this came down the pipe, with the news that it was going to be $11.5 million, I was like, oof. There's going to be some cap casualties, and they're going to be coming soon. And Doug Wilson also was saying something about recouping draft picks. So that goes ding, 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 ding. Somebody's going to get moved here. And you know what? It would not surprise me if the Sharks play hardball with Ryan, try and get him in with some cost certainty, replace Bronny, and go from there. The other thing I was saying was it wouldn't be surprising to see him be moved to Minnesota. They're always, in the lookout for defensemen, and he's from there, and he's got, family there. So, that to me is kind of, I think that spells the end for Braun and Teal.
I kind of hope it does. 3.8 million, 32 years old. Yeah, okay, he's a right-handed D, and that seems to be something that some people value. If you can get back some picks for him, absolutely. Frees up some cap space, absolutely. Do that. You got Jacob Middleton sitting there, but left-handed shot. But either way, there is stuff in the pipeline to discuss, people to make a jump. Again, a healthy Šimek is going to be a nice Šimek to have. Joachim Ryan, it was nice knowing you, buddy. I think he gone. Tim Heed, I think somebody's going to come along for Tim Heed and give him some cash, like 1.5, 1.7, somewhere in there. He's a nice option to have, and he's kind of a Swiss Army knife. He can do power play. He can give you some decent minutes. I mean, yeah, he's an incredibly poor he's like a homeless man's Erik Karlsson. But it's still though. I like Tim Heed's game, and I think he is a good serviceable 5'6". Would you want him playing with Dylan in the 5'6" slot? I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, I also agree with that. I think, we've got guys to replace Braun, so that isn't really too much of a pressing need. But that right-handed defenseman, if you want to go righty lefty, righty lefty, righty lefty, you've got to figure that Vlasic and Karlsson are going to play together. Or I mean, they might keep Dylan together with him, but your best shutdown.
But with Vlasic.
Yeah, exactly.
And it depends on if they want to break that up.
Right. And then, if you keep Heed, you've got an option to do a Vlasic Heed pairing, a Karlsson Dillon pairing, and a Shimmick Burns pairing. And oh my goodness, now you've got 3 offensive defensemen. You're going to be rolling them out, 1, 2, 3.
All right. Hey, puck guy, when you're screwing off, can you hit mute, dude? But that's gonna be okay. For the 27 people who have asked in the chat, no, nobody took me up on my jersey offer. There was one guy who said on Twitter, I might have to take you up on that.
That's awful.
There was no, there was nothing confirmed, nothing like that. So nobody took me up on the deal. And so, hey, you tossed away a perfectly good, authentic Erik Karlsson jersey, my friend. But it is what it is.
Which is a bummer because I was this close to doing it myself because I just had a feeling that EK65 was going to get in there. I still, even though he mentioned in the media call today, guys, I still think this deal was done earlier than expected.
I think it was too.
Yeah, I think it was kind of in the back pocket, right? You got to figure the Sharks had talked to him when they did the trade, how interested he would be, in re-signing. So, good on Doug Wilson though, because again, like you guys have said, somebody was going to offer up this kind of a deal, and you know what? The Sharks good on him for putting the money where their mouth is, and they got him done.
Skylar in the chats, remember AJ when you said a couple times during the season Erik Karlsson would not come back to the team? Yeah, I was absolutely wrong. I didn't think the guy gelled. I thought he was a little bit of a prima donna. Got that injury prone thing. Now we'll see. Is this a defensive Martin Havlat that we end up seeing over the next couple of years? Who knows? If we get 100% Erik Karlsson for the next few years, that would be fantastic. Clearly, hopefully he's over this injury bug, because remember, we saw this with Tomas Hertl, had a couple seasons where they just couldn't get through the injury bug. Wow, what in the world noise is that coming from you, Landy? Wow. Was it just me, or did it sound like a truck just drove through Landy's room? That was really interesting.
Well, that was the truckload of cash that the Sharks were delivering. I guess they're bringing it in from San Diego.
Oh,
I guess.
Whoa, yeah, dude.
Your audio just
yeah. So go ahead and mute up. Anyway, it comes down to, okay, so he got the ridiculous long deal, 8 years. He got the big payout. He's most expensive defenseman in the league now. To me, though, that means he's lucky that he got this deal in San Jose and not in Toronto or Montreal or back east, where people would be relentless on him if he didn't perform. But I think that Sharks fans might be, if they don't see something from him early on next season, you could see some people holding signs up that's, $11 million man or something like that. $92 million man. Where is it?
in that is the pressure that you get when you get those big bucks. I mean, I would expect John Tavares to have the same thing if he stayed in if he had signed in San Jose. I mean, for $13 million. It's
AO in the chat. Maybe it might be a defensive Bodker.
Come on.
No.
But I mean, guys, really, I mean, it's a 2-time Norris defenseman, and look at his track record. everybody who is saying, that, oh, this is not a great deal. This is not, going to look good. I just, you look at the body of work. I mean, he's an elite defenseman.
It's low risk, high reward for the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part. But boy,
I'll give you the injury. I'll give you the injury history. That one to me kind of says, okay, maybe this is where it could go awry, but you always have LTIR if it's really that bad.
There's that. You also got the case of, look, again, maybe besides the whole deal of sitting there going, well, somebody else is going to give him this deal. Maybe this deal got done earlier than expected because maybe his agent said, you know what? We're not seeing the offers that we expected because of the year you had. And maybe San Jose came along and had the best deal.
Yeah. And Brian Bishop in the chat saying at 40% still was our best defenseman in the playoffs.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to disagree with that. Erik Karlsson giveth, Erik Karlsson taketh away. The dude was a turnover machine when he was playing injured. There was, I'll be the first one to admit, it was an insanely awesome streak. After he got the return to Ottawa out of his system at the beginning of December, the Sharks up until middle of January when he got injured versus Arizona, that streak of 20 games that he played in, it's like almost a point a game player. It's one of those games he was like +4, another one he was +5. I mean, he put up some sick numbers on that and had a streak, of scoring a point in every game for a ridiculous run. Sharks went 14 or 15-4-1 during that run. That's the Sharks that I want to see for the whole season, boys. President's Trophy, here we come, right? But it's just you got to stay healthy, and that's going to be a lot of cash. And if this doesn't pan out, you might see some people, for all the success that Doug Wilson has had, and let's be honest, the dude has pulled more moves than Houdini, but if this I guess, you know what, let's just all say, hey, this is going to work out, this is all beautiful, we're all going to laugh about this next year and the year after when they win back-to-back cups, right? Like, this is all fine, it's all good. Who did they play during that stretch? Al wants to know, because evidently Al doesn't have the schedule in front of him. So here we go. At Montreal, Carolina, at Dallas, at Arizona, New Jersey, Dallas, at Chicago, at Minnesota, Winnipeg, LA, Arizona, Anaheim. Both those games you'll remember EK65 was suspended for. At Edmonton, then we all remember New Year's Eve, the drubbing at Calgary. Then another ridiculous streak where it's at Colorado, Tampa Bay, LA, Edmonton, at Vegas, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, at Arizona. That run right there was pretty damn spectacular. I believe they won the first 6 or 7 games in January. There was 3 months in a row, January, February, and March. They won the first 6 or more games each of those months, but the last couple of months, it was the back end of the 30 days that they didn't look that great. But let's move on. So he's here. That's great. Okay, we know we're stuck with this guy for 8 years. Okay, great. Now, what does this mean for everybody else on the team when you only have $12.5 million left to re-sign Jumbo, to re-sign Pavs, Meyer, LeBanc, Nyquist, Gambrell, Ryan, Heed, if you want any of those guys back? I'm sorry. Job numero uno. It's a tie between Meyer and Pavelski.
Throw in Banker too. I mean, if you were going to put a small sample size on it, he had an insane 4-point night in Game 7 against Vegas. He had some nice moves in the playoffs. He's looking at a big deal to sign up on. Timo time showed up big time last year. He's going to look for a payout. That's the one that concerns me the most. We talked about. Everybody talks about Mitch Marner getting an offer sheet. Does Timo Meyer get an offer sheet in the sense where he's a big boy who knows who can score? He's got some decent wheels. He could be one that teams could possess.
Yeah, and Nick's saying Meyer's high priority. He's 22. He's not 35 like Pavs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, it's get the RFAs done. Decide on who you want to keep before the time comes when the RFA interview period begins, where they can start to talk to other teams. Right now, the Sharks have the exclusivity to get this redone. I'm sure that Doug is talking to Timo's representative to see kind of feeling out what they're looking for. Somebody else brought up too that if you can sign him to a 2 to 3 year bridge deal, you've got Paul Martin's deal coming off. The rest of the buyout. You've got Pavelski, for his second contract or whatever contract he's on now, but you're going to get basically that coming off the book. So you then have that space to give him the 7, 8, $9 million it'll take to re-sign him for long term. So, you just got to sell the agent on the fact that, look, give you 3 years and we won't buy out any of your UFA years. You give us this bridge deal and we'll make it worth your while. This is what Tomas Hertl got. This is what I think Logan got the same kind of deal as well. And you know what? I think that's the best kind of way to navigate this. Again, with Labanc, I'm not as worried about Labanc. He seems like he's kind of a player that still needs to really kind of define what he's going to be in the league. Yeah, he's a good power play specialist and he's a good passer, but we got to see what kind of touch that he's going to have going forward. So, those two, I'm concerned, but I am not overly concerned. The biggest, to me, it's just the biggest issue now is going to be getting some more cap space back. And the guys that I'm circling are going to be Melker and Braun. And again, go back to try and get something get something for Braun. He's still got pretty good cachet in the league. And as far as Melker goes, try and get rid of him for pennies on the dollar. And I mean, that's $5.8 million right there.
Braun, yeah, I'm definitely with you. Melker, yeah, you would think the reason why I'm a little hesitant about these things is like Braun, absolutely, like the door can't hit you on the ass soon enough. Now, granted, you were here and you delivered spectacularly for the most part. You and Vlasic were the shutdown guys for the longest time. But we've made our bed. We're going to lie in it. So Braun, have a nice day. We're going to take that 3.8 and take some picks and go play wherever you need to go play, whether it's Minnesota or whoever. Great. Melker, the only thing that makes me a little nervous about Melk is they love him on the PK. Everybody constantly asking, why is Melker out there? Why is Melker? Because the guy kills penalties. Now, if you can get that same kind of play from Marcus Sorensen, then yeah, I think that makes you can get Sorensen to be a top-notch killer. I think that makes Barkley expendable. And like you said, there's 5 point whatever that frees up a decent amount of coin to get Timo's bridge going. And it's like, hey, we signed Pavelski for 2 years at 5.5 or whatever. If he'll take the hometown discount, that would be great. Will you give Timo the 2-year deal? That's the bridge to his big buck one down the line. Fantastic. Labanc going to be a little bit less, but that also means buy to Nyquist. It's also a case of, and we'll find out in a couple of weeks at prospect camp, but how spectacularly awesome and ready is Shemlevsky, Chekovic, Blickfeld, these guys that they're up on. Yeah, Alexander True. So there's definitely some names there that make some of the current guys expendable. Also, don't forget, you still got Lukas Radil sitting there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also potentially making Melker expendable.
Yeah, and I'm totally with you on that, AJ. I think that Lukas Radil is going to be a guy that they're going to expect some bigger things out of, especially with his extra year that they got, the extension that they got him signed under. So yeah, I think that that's going to be really important for him to step up. Again, I'm just kind of breaking down what Eric's got up there, the cap friendly listings, and 5.8 million between Karlsson and between Justin Braun. That could get you it could get you a Nyquist. I know that Nyquist wants to stay around with Erik Karlsson, but again, we also have to think about, another guy to me is Aaron Dell. What's going to happen with Aaron Dell? Because he's got $1.9 million on the cap, and, his year was not great at all. Could he be a victim too?
I hope he's a victim. I just wish he wouldn't have played himself out like this. I would have hoped to have seen a little bit more from him this year, so the Sharks would get more value back. But no, with as high as they're on, what was the kid's name? Shortridge?
No,
What's that kid's name? Shortridge. Yeah, Andrew Shortridge. You got him. You obviously have Bebo and Cornash down below. One of those guys needs to come up. Likely Cornash. He's the one who went to the All-Star game last season in the AHL. They're also super high on that kid, the 18-year-old Emmond.
Emond.
Yeah. So they're high on him, as Doug Wilson mentioned today in the conference call. So, Aaron Dell, hashtag pack your shit.
Yeah, and again, I mean, the other thing that we have to look at on the forward side is what's going to happen with a guy like Antti Suomela. That's a guy that's kind of down there. He's ready. Where is he going to line up? They've got Manuel Reeder. We've got Noah Gregor. There is definitely some prospects that can come up and try and take some of the spots, and that's what's going to have to be required now, especially with the amount of money that is locked up on the defense. You're going to have those ELCs come in and take big minutes, and that's a risk. It's a risk because Peter DeBoer also loves his veterans. So do you worry about burnout again?
Well, what's the minimum Jumbo can sign for? Because that also factors in.
What, $1.2 million, $1.5 million league minimum?
Yeah, well, I was going to say league minimum for a guy with his experience. I'm wondering what the league minimum is for him. And the other thing too that I think we kind of talked about, at least Eric and I, or somebody and I were talking about it, is what if Jumbo takes 5 months to decide?
And what is appeals of Jeff Fisher?
Yeah, it comes back around Christmas or something. And says,
yeah.
And so now you've got a pretty well rested Jumbo who can just slot right into the third line.
Well, and here's the other thing too, as you mentioned about Joe Thornton. Doug Wilson mentioned this on the conference call too, and I'll quote him here: "There will always be a place for Joe Thornton in this organization, on or off the ice." Which, okay, we all knew that, but is that a way of sending a message to Jumbo? In the sense that, okay, we may not be able to fit you this time around. You want something else. And for that matter, when you guys talk about players that should come back, Nyquist, I thought he probably didn't have the points in the playoffs, but I thought he was a great setup guy, especially if you're going to have him maybe on your number 2 power play. I thought he looked really remarkable, but for every multi-million-dollar guy you're going to have some guy like Dylan Gambrell or Chekovich or Shemolevsky if they're ready. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we even Francis Perron, the other guy that's supposed to be a part of this deal, he's a restricted free agent. Does he go into it? We talked about Alex True in that sense.
Jerk in the chat. Nyquist led the Sharks in creating scoring chances, had undeniable chemistry in 39 and 28.
Yes.
I'm not discounting any of that. I'm just saying for the money he's going to command, but it's the money he's going to command and the age that he's at. If he's 25, 26, maybe the Sharks look at it harder, but the fact that he's nearly 30, maybe he falls victim because again, the priority set is right now Timo, then LeBanc, then Pavelski, or some. I don't know that Nyquist falls into the top 3. And once you lock up those top 3, is there enough room left?
Yeah, no, and I think that that's totally a valid point. That, and I think again, it's going to come down to what kind of cap space can be made. The other thing, guys, that we also might want to take a look at and might be valuable to understand is what's it going to take to win the Western Conference next go around, next season, because we saw that St. Louis did it with bruising forwards. I mean, do the Sharks need to pick up a little bit of size? I mean, do the Sharks, need something to kind of combat what Calgary brings to the table? Because Calgary's not going to go out in the first round again. Then you've got the up and comers in Colorado. So it's going to be a balancing act on what is going to lead you to the promised land in the West.
And that's the big thing, Landy, is that you have these teams that have been in the cellar dweller blah, 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 for years. You look at Edmonton. Edmonton's due, and if Nyquist doesn't stay with the Sharks, I could see him landing on the top line with Connor McDavid in Edmonton. You look at them. You look at Calgary. You mentioned Colorado. These guys, heck, even the Desert Dogs. Oh, excuse us. But these teams are on the rise. The Sharks do have a good growing nucleus, but they're not as young yet. I mean, they have Pavelski right now. Do they keep them? Do they try to go with a more of a younger roster down the road? Because you're going to have to with the tight squeeze, but you're going to have a tight squeeze right now. But at the same time, last year at this time we were talking about speed, even getting the undersized forward with the speed and the skill. Now, because St. Louis has come in and you know elbowed and shoulder to head their way to a Stanley Cup, now people are talking about, oh, we need taller, bigger players, get more grit, as Dean Lombardi once put it.
Yeah, but again, you got to walk that fine line between grit and speed, right? I mean, I think that's the thing. St. Louis was an aberration in the fact that they got past a speedy team. And I think that if there was a team that was a little quicker than us, they might have gave St. Louis a little bit of a run for their money. But again, it's not really fair to also compare because the Sharks weren't up to 100%. So we don't really know best on best what would have happened. But I think the other thing that we got to look at too is Doug Wilson, I think, is betting on the fact that the offense is primarily coming from the defense. And a lot of guys had career years this year, and it's no coincidence that you've got two stud defensemen on offense back there who can make a great breakout pass. And, I'm just sitting here looking at the cap hit. Guys, between Burns and Karlsson, that's 28% of the cap. That's 28% of your cap on two guys. So I think that honestly, that's what the makeup of the team is going to be forward is that the offensive depth on the forward side might suffer because of the defensive depth that you have, but you might be able to get some career years out of forwards who might not necessarily should have those career years.
But you look at guys like Evander Kane, who had 30 goals in the regular season, 2 in the postseason. That's going to be the big if. I mean, otherwise we're looking at Heatley 2.0 in that sense, and you have him locked up for a long time with a modified no trade clause.
Well, and you're talking about that money that's, that Burns and Karlsson are making. Well, look at what Austin Matthews and John Tavares are making.
Yeah, they make up what, 25, 26 million, and
22.6.
And Mitch Marner wants to, make that over 30 something for Toronto. Teams are going to have to find a way, or they can give them up and then just reap the rewards of like multiple draft picks. And that's why I think, the Timo Meyer signing will be very, very interesting as we get closer and closer to the free agency time.
I think this also, the Erik Karlsson signing, as far as I'm concerned, puts to bed any idea of entertaining Marlowe back in Teal. Because I honestly think that if Karlsson had not signed with the Sharks, obviously they've got a lot of money to move, mess with. But I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have had Thornton, Marlowe, and somebody as your third line. Because, significantly reduced minutes, but it's still big name. I'm just saying, I could have seen that happen, but now I think we can put the whole Marlowe back in Teal thing back to bed. He can go down there and hang out with his buddy Marco Sturm and Todd McClellan in LA and have fun with that.
And really quick, Lenny, sorry to cut you off there, but we want to get to the poll question that we put up on our Tealtown USA Twitter. Sharks fans, what do you think about the Erik Karlsson re-signing for 8 years at $11.5 million AAV? Or at the moment, it's 79% a great move by the Sharks, 21% bad move, too much money. And we've had a lot of comments on here, guys, about what they think of this deal. Seymour Sports petition to redo this with great if they win the cup, great regardless and bad regardless. A lot of people were mentioning
two things can be true.
Somewhere in between or both. Great move, but too much money.
California Cruising saying, I just think it's too many years. Well, I said the same thing about Burns, and I said the same thing about Kane, and I said the same thing about Vlasic. The problem is some other team out there is going to give them this deal. That's why you have to go with it.
Yeah, and I think we're also seeing now that the length in contracts is really the sticking point in a lot of different negotiations. This isn't just unique to the Sharks, guys. I mean, this is something that has continually evolved in the NHL, and I think that having guaranteed contracts, you're going to want to try and maximize your security. And you know what? In a cap system, that's kind of where it's going to lead you, because in order to get the AAV down, you've got to extend on the years, and that's just a result of what's going to happen.
That's
now,
what Lance is talking about in the chat. He would have gotten 12.5 elsewhere. Well, yeah, because anywhere else they wouldn't have been able to give him that last year.
Right, exactly. And so again, it's not it's not like it's unprecedented. This is just kind of what happens, and I'm sure DW sold it to Hasso as, look, I mean, this is what it's going to take to keep a superstar guy in Teal, and we either buck up or we lose him, and that's kind of where that goes. Now, it would not surprise me though if we saw in the new CBA some kind of option to restructure deals. And it also wouldn't surprise me to see a cap north of 100 million. So, it could be interesting to see in the next 2 to 3 years what his percentage of the cap looks like then, because $11 million for a superstar defenseman might not be that much in 2 to 3 years.
And that's a great point, Landy, because when Burns signed that deal, we were looking about, probably close to visioning a maybe $80 million salary cap. We're already over that. Give it a few years and the salary cap could be over 100, especially once the hockey related revenue comes into play for the Seattle whatever they are. I mean, granted that all the owners are going to get money for getting that expansion fee, but at the same time, once that team starts selling the merch, the tickets and everything, and probably get the refs and the sweetheart deal to get to the Stanley Cup final in their inaugural season, it's one of those things that's going to add on to the cap.
I'm really, really hoping for Seattle placeholders. Really rooting for that. Jerk saying Seattle coming in will bring the cap up. Yeah, I'm sure it will.
For sure.
And Marty saying the TV contract. That's a great point. The TV contract for NBC is going to be up in the next 2 years, and we're already hearing reports that ESPN wants back in. So that's going to drive the TV deal through the roof, and that goes back into the HRR pot.
Bring back OLN.
Versus.
Yes, break out the verses. But guys, we talk about the hockey related revenue and everything like that. Let's not forget that the league can pull out of the CBA prior to training camp this year, and we play one season, and then
Please. How many times has a guy said they were going to pull out and it didn't happen? I'm not worried about it.
No, I'm not. I'm not either. I think that there's too much momentum right now. And again, I think that the NHL is really eyeing those Chinese Olympics. And I think that they're really kind of got a hard on for that. And I don't see them,
I look forward to Vlasic's tweet.
I don't foresee them putting that in jeopardy. So, I think that, okay, realistically, where are we going to go with the players and owners split? I mean, it's already 50-50, and I don't see the owners trying to push on that more. I mean, because look how long it took to get to where we're at now. So structurally, it's there. Now we're just going to be talking about, okay, what are we going to do with the cap? What are we going to do with escrow and things like that? And I think escrow is going to be the biggest sticking point.
The other thing that we haven't discussed as well, when we're talking about the bridge deal for Timo, what about, say, that Timo gets talked into, like, here, we're going to give you this 2-year bridge deal for actually 2 reasons. We're only going to tell you what one of them is, but one of them is, we want to get Pavelski here for 2 more seasons. Help us out. And then you'll see some more coin on the back end. We'll take care of you on the back end like we did with Hurdle, like we've done with other players. The other thing being is maybe the Sharks also free up more cap in a couple of years to take care of Timo, because they make a player like Kane available to Seattle. And so they lose that deal, that contract off the books.
Plus compliance buyouts when they come around again, where they're going to have that too. So again, I think that in the long run, I don't think this is going to be as bad a deal as we all, as it kind of looks right now, where it's like, oh my goodness, $11.5 million for a player. That's kind of a lot. But again, in the long run, I don't think it's going to be that big a deal.
I love the fact that a year ago at this time, we were talking about, like, what a great pickup Evander Kane was. Everybody thought he was going to be the head case, everything. And wow, what a great pickup he was. And that's just going to do really well. And he got the good contract. Oh, okay. And a year later, it's like, how fast can we buy this son of a bitch out? It's
amazing.
The guy had 30 goals.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 30-goal scorer. So I totally agree with you, AJ. I think his struggles have been blown out of proportion. But we also got to figure in the emotional aspect too. I mean, he lost his daughter, and right before the playoffs, and that's got to have messed with his head. We were talking about it at lunch, me and my family, and just, it's like, man, if I had a daughter on the way and I lost her, I would be devastated.
Well, see, that's what I look forward to for next season, is Kane having a bounce back year. He can, hopefully he can get over that hump. And it's, my heart goes out to the guy. That's devastating. But, as callous as it is to say, the show must go on. You have to perform in your contract, and and if you're not in the right place, if your head's not in it, if you can't do it because of personal issues, that's fine. Get out. Stuff has happened to other people, and I understand, man, the pressure has got to be significant. But if he's able to move on, and hopefully things work out family wise with him, and I don't want to get into that personal stuff and what he does with his life in that regard, but the thing being is that if he bounces back next season, you get a bounce back season from Jones. You get a bounce back. We all know this is like one of Vlasic's worst seasons ever, at least for the first half of the season. I mean, it was horrible. You get those bounce back, the bounce backs from those guys, those key guys that you're used to relying on, like a guy like Jones, a guy like Vlasic. Then you get a healthy Shimmick, you get a healthy EK65. Next season, I mean, like I said, President's Trophy, here we come. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, and then we also have to think about the continued growth of a player like Tomas Hurdle, who had a 70 70+ point season.
Playing
he
two
comes
different positions.
exactly. So you stack him up as a center going into next season, and I mean we could see north of 80 points, guys, 80 or 90 points. It would not shock me. And again, LeBanc, there's reason to believe that this team is going to be good, and not just for the next 2 to 3 years, but projected out, 4 to 5 years.
Well, we heard on the conference call today, Doug Wilson, his high value is defense and centers. You have Couture, you've got Hurdle. Those are your top two centers. Who centers the third and fourth line if next season Jumbo and Pavs aren't here?
Right. I mean, that creates a big hole. So then now you're trying to plug those two holes, and you don't have a lot of cap space to do it out on the free agent market. So you got to go do another trade, but you got to look at what kind of draft picks you have or lack thereof. You also have to.
Right there is why I think DW figures out a way to get Thornton one more season.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to, right? I mean, Thornton and Joe Pavelski are going to be very important for the longevity. I mean, not longevity, but the immediate future. And then you're going to have to hope that some center is going to come along in the next 2 to 3 years in the pipeline. I mean, I don't know what Dylan Gambrell is going to be projected to be. I mean, maybe a high 3C, as far as, a third line center with high upside. I don't know, maybe.
I don't know. I'm not buying. I'm not on the Gambrell train as of yet. I'm trying to think of who it is. There was somebody else I thought not too long ago that had some expectation, and no, I'm not talking about Nikolai Goldobin, although maybe, but it's just, you had some expectation and it just didn't. It just didn't pan out. No, we're not bringing Chris Tierney back. But we have to find somebody at that center spot to take over for Jumbo when he's. And like I said, you could. Okay, hear me out.
Oh boy, get ready, folks.
If Pavelski leaves, you can keep Joe Thornton. Patrick Marleau played center. No, I'm kidding. Let it go, people. Let it go.
Oh, no.
But I mean, it's a lot of centers. And Wilson talked about that. He's excited about the stuff they have on wing, but it all starts at the center position. So,
yeah, I think Noah Gregor is going to be really important going forward. I think that's going to be a guy that's going to be counted on to grow and mature. We got to think about what's the long-term future for Rourke Chartier, if he's coming back, what's his deal with his concussions. Alex True, I think, to me, Barclay Goodrow really nailed down that fourth line center role. So if you're going to bring in Alex True, I think he's going to have to play the wing.
See, I like this. I like seeing True on the fourth line going forward.
Yeah, I mean, him and Barkley and Radil, I mean, that makes a pretty good fourth line. And then, you have Jumbo and you have Sorensen and you have Banker on that third line. I mean, those are two pretty good lines. Now, the one caveat that I see to this is that fourth line and trying to get some more production out of it. In the Western Conference Final, they really needed to step it up, and there wasn't a lot there.
It felt like it's one of two things it feels like, okay? When with your fourth line, depending on who you're playing, if you're going to go track meet, then you got to have production out of your fourth line, obviously. Now, when you've got this much offensive firepower just on the blue line alone, you would think if your top six are going to do what they're supposed to, then yeah, you just want to see a good energy line from the third and fourth, ones that can, just push the pace, keep the puck in their own zone, whether they get a lot of scoring chances or not, neither here nor there, but just to push the pace and keep possession. Now, there's also something to be said for, I think Landy was mentioning earlier. What about when you play a team like a Vegas, like a St. Louis? It's track meet style when you're playing Colorado. But when you got Vegas and the Blues, then where is that sandpaper grit? Where is our Ryan Reeves? You know what I mean?
And that's where the return of Michael Haley will come into play.
Oh God,
no! I'd rather bring back John Scott, for Christ's sake.
You know, and it's interesting. A guy that we were talking about earlier at lunch again was Rafi Torres. I mean, that guy just brought a different dimension to the Sharks. I know we're laughing about it, but you know, that kind of a shit stirrer is kind of what we need, right? I mean, that's what we were missing against St. Louis, a guy who toes the line, going to throw a questionable hit here and there, and you know, is going to really put the fear of God in those defensemen when they go back and turn their back, like they're going to get their heads taken off. And the Sharks didn't have that.
California Cruising asking that we bring back Mike Hoffman. Absolutely. I'm sure Erik Karlsson is dying for that to happen. But yeah, it would be nice to find that. It's funny for all those people that talk about that, you know, a Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson, these are generational players. They don't grow on trees, are very difficult to develop and grow and find. There's also something to be said for a player like a Steve Downey or a Daniel Carcillo or even a Steve Ott, just you know, a guy that just is incredibly that makes you want to pull your hair out when you play against them. They're incredibly tough. They get under your skin, but they still will contribute offensively from time to time. Especially Steve Downey. I don't know how many times that guy helped me out during fantasy leagues back in the day, but yeah, those guys are very difficult to cultivate. But you know, it's that pendulum swings both ways. We saw what Reeves did in the playoff series versus Vegas for a couple of those games. He got under Kane's skin. Kane was out to dry, and Reeves absolutely did his job. And then somehow, some way, whatever it was, game 5 or whatever, the Sharks shook it off and said, don't let Reeves in your head. And Reeves was basically a non-factor for the last 3 games. So it's tough to weigh that. Do you want to have that heaviness? You know, do you need that like Ryan Clough kind of player? Or are you going to get enough grit from a Brendan Dillon, from an Evander Kane, from a Timo Meier that it's enough, you know?
Yeah, I mean, a guy that I was really impressed with from St. Louis was Sammy Blais. You know, that was a guy that had an extremely strong forecheck, a guy that continually punished Justin Braun. I felt so bad for him. Every time Justin turned his back, it seemed like he was getting hit. And that's, you know, honestly, more commitment to that kind of style when you play those kind of guys. It's just, that's what it's going to take, because you saw what an attrition war that Vegas series was. And I guarantee you that's not going to be the last we see of them in the first round. I see it. I see it happening for a long time to come.
Well, I don't know about that. They have their own cap hell situation to deal with. We shall see. AO making some good points in the chat. It's like, you know, where's our McNabb or Colin Miller? Yeah, absolutely agree. You know, it's damn. You know, we need a Douglas Murray.
Pat Maroon, you know, that's an interesting guy to kind of bring in.
I can't see him leaving St. Louis, though. That's the tough part.
No, but I mean that kind of a player, you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't. I mean, I get what you're saying, Marchand. We need Marchand. No. I love Toffoli. I loves me some Toffoli, but no, I like these names of McNabb, Colin Miller. That's you need some sort of just, you know, some guy that can get under your skin, but just plays a real heavy game that you just don't want to get into it with. You know what it is? We need it on the defensive side. Maybe like where's the current iteration of Brian Marchment?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean,
or Jeff Odgers.
Yeah, Jeff Odgers. I mean, Brendan Dillon is supposed to bring that, but I don't really know what kind of happened to him in that St. Louis series. It just didn't look right.
Brendan Dillon, all being skill now. Where do you get off doing that?
Right. So, you know, again, it's going to come down to what is going to be the perfect balance between size, between physicality, and between speed, because, you know, again, you're going to have burners on the roster, because you're going to face a Colorado, you're going to face a Calgary who's got some speedsters. And again, Eric brings up Edmonton. I mean, you know, this is a team that has been languishing for so long. I mean, you know, when the broken clock is up on the wall, it's going to be right twice in a day. So Edmonton's got to be there sometime.
I don't know. It's physicality to me. It just felt like it won out.
It did.
Calgary got manhandled. Or actually, no. I mean, no. Colorado speed bagged Calgary. That you had that heavy game, but then it came down to St. Louis and San Jose, and St. Louis just had a heavy game, despite how lucky San Jose was. Let's get that out of the way. But
yeah.
The final two games were just heavy games. It's going to be a lot to talk about. And hey, we got all season to do it. AJ did what? Yes, it did. Okay, I get what you're saying. Anyway, so let's get to the awards that are coming up.
Yep.
First off, does Jumbo get the Masterton? I say yes. Does Burns get the Norris? I say no. I say Giordano gets that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say no to both, unfortunately. I think the story from New York and Robin Langer gets the nod for that, and I'm with you, AJ. I think Giordano gets the Canadian vote and pulls it out.
Agreed. I also agree with the Giordano. And to be quite honest, guys, look, Brent Burns had an amazing offensive season, but Giordano just had a beast of a season, both offensively and defensively. This is the guy that deserves the trophy.
And he gets the Canada vote and he gets the age vote.
Yeah. He also gets the, never won one. It's time for him to win one vote. So I think that Giordano going away. Burns, I think, comes in second in the voting. As far as Masterton goes, I think it's going to be a dead heat between Langer and Jumbo, and I think Jumbo might win it.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Jumbo. Can we stop, please, with the finding a new goal song thing? It is what it is, man. I did what I could. It didn't work out. What are you going to do?
Hey, we are responsible for 2 goal songs. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey,
I don't see any other site posting about that.
Yeah, I mean, and the current iteration is thanks to us. So, and it's stuck around. I think
it's coming around.
And it's starting to come around. I think if they dial in the sound a little bit better, or if maybe they get like a mix going. But can we, if you're on Reddit, because I see this every once in a while, and I'm tired of bringing it up, or I'm tired of explaining it. So if you see it, every time I see something, everybody focuses on Pantera wrote a song for the Dallas Stars. Why doesn't Metallica write one for the Sharks? I'll tell you why. Because the Sharks asked them and they politely declined. That's it. Metallica's not writing a song for the Sharks. Let it go. This happened years ago. Metallica was asked. They politely declined. Let's move on. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
So for the draft, Sharks have 4 picks, none of them until round 3. So enjoy the first night of the draft if you're a Sharks fan, because it's just going to be a snooze fest for you. Unless we start seeing picks move around.
Unless we have a trade to announce.
Jerk, go ahead. If I'll be able to hear you, or if everybody else will. Who knows?
Jump on, Jerk.
No, I just want to vamp a little bit on the draft. I think that we are going to see some trades, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see. I think Braun would net a second round, maybe a low second round pick, but it would not surprise me if you try to finagle your way into the second round. I think that could be a big boon for the Sharks. Depending on what they want to do with a Brendan Dillon. I'm just looking kind of through what other kind of trades that could be made.
Satan, whatever your name is. I see you. I see what you're doing. You do it again, I'm going to time you out, you son of a bitch.
Guys, what any thoughts on maybe a Brent Burns being moved? I mean,
why does that keep coming up? I do not understand why that keeps coming up. Face of the franchise, got a long deal, is just a beast on the power play. I don't understand why that keeps coming up.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think people think that the cap value, the availability that he does have a 3-team no trade, and there's definitely going to be some speculation, but I can't see it happening. I mean, I
The
think there's
only way I see that happening is that if he declines over the next couple of years and they decide to make him available to Seattle. That's the only way. He face of the franchise. He's beloved. You know.
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Do you want to expose him to a division rival?
Well, he's already exposed himself in the
boy.
magazine ESPN. But anyway,
we have Mr. Hockey Jerk.
yeah. Let's see if
Jerk,
I can. Let's see if I can
can we
actually
hear you?
hear him.
He's muted right now.
Hello, it is Hockey Jerk.
Is he speaking?
He's speaking.
Yeah, I can't hear him. So try joining again.
Shout out to Google
I can't
Hangout.
hear anything.
Yeah, no kidding.
Better tell him to join again.
Keep trying to get. Yeah, he dropped out.
Yeah.
He gave a shout out to Google Hangouts though. So
There you go. Yeah, see, no Felix. Yeah, no way in hell DW moves Burns. Yeah, I just don't see it happen, man. Face of the franchise. Just no way. And the guy's just such a character. He's a massive fan favorite. I've never seen the guy decline a photo or an autograph that if somebody wants it. I mean, he's a guy that you just want around.
Yeah,
Okay,
heart and soul guy.
Jerk, let's try it again. Say something.
Would you say that Brent Burns is good in the room?
Yeah, I would say
Brent Burns is good in the room.
I would say Brent Burns is good.
He's a real character
Jerk,
guy.
I got nothing. I can't hear him.
Shout
Thank
out
you,
to Google Hangouts.
you piece of dog crap.
Well, I'll relay the questions to.
and in the chat, Brody's stream just crashed.
Yeah, bro. Yes, it's not me.
Oh,
He's got the AOL.
Google Hangouts, man. Get it together. You have bajillions and jillions of dollars. Get it together, man. Fix this.
Rob,
One second, Brody. If you're
If you're
watching, I got this for you, bud.
there it is, the America Online CD.
Yes.
Rob asking what kind of pick Dylan would bring back. I would say that Dylan's a high second rounder, low first rounder to me at this moment right now.
Jerk, what do you think of that?
The correct answer is no draft pick because we need to keep Brendan Dillon.
I agree. I don't want to see him moved. I want to see Braun move first.
By the way, let me know when he's done because I still can't hear him.
Well, I want to really quickly. These guys that are allegedly going to be traded, Braun, Melker Karlsson, Aaron Dell, they're not bad players. They're just guys who are I know AJ can't hear me, but just a skosh too pricey.
Right.
And, that's fine. They're still valuable to another team. If those three aren't moved or it takes a long time, I would say just don't let it bother you too much because, if Doug Wilson can't go to, say, Chuck Fletcher or, Rob Blake or whomever and say, here, take this guy, they actually have to want the player. That's the big thing I've seen is like, well, we're just going to trade all these guys. And it's like, it's a great idea, but there's got to be a mutual desire there.
Yeah, I see Chuck Fletcher being a good trade partner for DW.
Chucky 2 trades.
Yeah, Chucky 2 trades. I see Braun also maybe going to Minnesota. Again, DW tries to do right by his players. Melker, I could see in Philly. I could really see a guy who's, a penalty killer and, somebody who's kind of a role player. And I think that would be good for a Philadelphia. So I think that there's definitely homes for these players, and I think that there's good homes for these players. And you're absolutely right. They're still valuable pieces, but they're not valuable to the Sharks at this cap hit.
Oh, man, dude, I thought Landy was about to go full-blown Sarah right there. Won't you find a home for these players? In
the arms of an angel.
DW.
Right. Jerk, kind of getting back onto the draft. What is there for the Sharks to really grab with their 4 picks? Or do they try to move up somehow? And is this a deep draft for them?
I would say probably not. I mean, I would say the top three is pretty. You could pretty much pencil it in. You have Jack Hughes, Capo Caco, and then you have Bowen Byram, the defenseman. But beyond that, I would argue that it's jump ball. I mean, you've got a couple good guys who obviously are in the excuse me, the USHL, and playing. In the United States, you have Alex Turcotte. You've got Cole Caulfield as well, Matthew Boldy. You have these guys, but really, it's the Sharks. At least in this situation, this draft, it not so much the focus. I don't think should be on quality. I think more on it's going to be on quantity. Just how many of these guys can you get? It's especially too in the later rounds. This draft's not totally deep, and it may end up being a situation where you're in the second round and say, hey, you know what? Throw a dart, and whatever it lands on, that's our guy. And if it hits, great. And if not, well, not every draft is 2015 where you've got 3 generational talents, in the first 4 picks. But I would say, I mean, even if you're, a Sharks fan, you only care about the Sharks, I would still watch the draft just because, Doug Wilson always finds a way to accumulate, picks out of thin air seemingly. And then, both Doug Wilson and the Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff have both said that like GMs are talking more so than like they have in a really long time. So if you're somebody like me who feeds off of trades and things percolating and all that stuff, I mean, the first round, especially on Friday, it's definitely something you want to watch. And I mean, let's not get crazy, but for all we know, the Sharks could be up on the draft board this Friday, if they decide to get super creative. So it's what I've found with Doug Wilson is you can't rule out anything really.
No, I totally agree with you, Jerk. Can't rule out anything. The guy just has a knack for pulling out things when seemingly there's nothing there.
And that's the thing. Out of nowhere, I mean, we've seen Doug pull these trades off. We sure as heck didn't see the haul that Ottawa was going to get to go for Erik Karlsson. Hell, or 10 years ago, trading Mahalik and Chichu and a pick to Ottawa for Danny Heatley.
It's a hell of a trade.
Or Sturm, Primo, and Stewart for some guy named Joe Thornton. He's always found a way, and he's always found some way to get this team the asset it needs. So
if you listen to Hockey Central at noon, or as I like to jokingly call Toronto Central at noon, you'll know that occasionally Brian Burke will refer to Doug Wilson as the dentist, and that's because no matter how much you hide and you run and you avoid it, he finds a way to get you in the chair, no matter what. So to your point, Eric and Eric, I think, I really think Doug Wilson, like, he's not going to sign Erik Karlsson to this big boy contract if he didn't have some kind of plan here. I made the analogy on Twitter. It's like when Doctor Strange gave Thanos the Time Stone. Like, it looks bad, but it's going to be good.
Agreed. And he's got a plan. He's got, the infamous ghost roster, that roster of players that he wants to get and he's targeting. So who knows? Maybe there's somebody he's targeting in a trade, or maybe there's, a particular player on the draft board that, he wants to try and get. These are not out of the realm of possibility, and especially for a guy like Doug Wilson. And you know what? In Doug, we have faith, right?
Well, it's funny you say that. You think about all the time that just a few short years ago, let us not forget, there was a contingent of fans that were trying to run Doug Wilson out of San Jose. They were tired of not getting there. Yet, despite the moves you had mentioned earlier, whether it was getting Danny Heatley, whether it was getting Brent Burns, whether it was getting Dan Boyle, with Joe Thornton, the guy has been on the positive end of just about every huge trade that he's done. But we've also completely neglected to address the biggest question about Erik Karlsson signing here is how does this impact the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Jerk, you were just mentioning Toronto. How does that affect the Maple Leafs?
Well, see, now instead of having no cap space, they have almost no cap space.
Yes, almost no cap space. Yes,
And
then
there's
Mitch
no-
Marner's agent and dad will be all.
It's going to be great. You know, Mitch Marner is going to take a pay cut, going to come in at 9.75 because that's a pay cut, and it's going to be great. They're going to, you know, they're going to have 3 defensemen, and and Frederick Anderson, who I love, by the way. Frederick Anderson is a fantastic goaltender. He will be just tormented in the first round by Boston again because Toronto doesn't help their goalie.
Are you surprised that Anderson didn't get nominated for the Vezina?
No, just because I think there were some better options than Frederick Anderson. But I think if the Vezina, if you expand that to maybe a top 5, I definitely think he's probably 5th.
Gotcha.
But I mean, you know, I look at like Robin Leonard obviously had a good year. Ben Bishop obviously had a good year.
Vasilevsky
as well. And even honestly, like there was a point this season where I was penciling in Marc-Andre Fleury to win the Vezina, you know, and he's not even nominated. So I think that goes to show you just how tight everything in this league really is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Marc-Andre Fleury was a guy that could have been also nominated. But again, you know, going back to the bigger question of how does this affect Toronto? What cap space is going to be available for the Sharks to take back Patrick Marleau?
Oh God, what can of worms did I open up?
None, because Patrick Marleau should not come back to San Jose. I don't care if it's league minimum and we have room for him. Just, you know, he wanted to go to Toronto and win Stanley Cups, and all I'm saying is the Sharks have gone further than the Maple Leafs have in the 2 years he's been gone. So I don't know. We'll see. You know, maybe he can sharpen skates. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Ooh,
with
ouch!
Finney and Mike Aldrich.
Band-Aids hurt, but you got to rip them off.
That's true. That's true. And who knows if things don't go their way, they might be ripping off the Joe Band-Aids. But then again,
LA.
Oh God, LA! Oh my God!
If he went to LA, that would be a perfect cocktail of just awesomeness.
Wants to go hang out with Marco Sturm again.
Marco Sturm and Todd McClellan,
Trent Yanni, all those guys.
Rob Blake.
Not to spiral down, but how funny is it that Marco Sturm's an assistant coach in Los Angeles with the guy he was traded for is still in the league, who was the captain after Rob Blake, who's now the general manager of the LA Kings. It's just craziness.
Insert your own Sean Avery sloppy seconds joke here, my friends.
Speaking of that, Dion Phaneuf bought out.
It's how it didn't happen sooner. I don't know.
Yeah. Surprises no one.
I'm blown away by. What happens with Corey Perry? There's another one.
Oh yeah, I think that's another buyout candidate.
I was going to say, take out your wallet.
He hasn't been bought out already. I thought he had.
Right.
Well,
I know that they were already talking about it. Like Getzlaf was like, "Well, we had a good run, and that's it." I mean, he gone.
The Ducks.
Kayla left. Man, she got hungry.
Go ahead, Trick.
The Ducks are trying mercilessly to trade him. So I don't know anybody who wants that cap hit for more than 1 year. But you know, I think he'll give you 9 goals on some questionable hips. So we'll see.
Hey, I mean, we'll take Perry on the 4th line if you want to throw in Richie.
I would rather have a mannequin on the 4th line.
But I'd rather have Richie though.
That's one that Anaheim's just gonna have to eat up. Unfortunately, I can't see Perry going anywhere, and if they did, it's with a team with a lot of cap space. So
Ottawa.
Paging Desert Dogs.
Desert Dogs, if you're watching.
All I'm saying
Hey,
is,
the Desert Dogs have, made plenty of
hey,
why did they
Ariz-
do that moves.
Arizona's going to be
So-
legit this year.
It
Sure.
was, huh?
Hey,
Jerk was saying Arizona's going to be legit this year, and you know what?
Oh, Jesus Christ, he says that every damn year.
hey, he's got to be
might
right
actually be
one of
right.
these days. Yeah, he's got to be right one of these days.
Oh,
No,
he's playing
the-
the laws of averages, and it's just not working out for him, man.
The interesting
Dude.
thing about Ottawa is with LA buying out Dion Phaneuf, the amount of retained salary that Ottawa is holding on to in the Phaneuf trade is now lower, which means Ottawa's even further away from the cap floor. So, if you've got that questionable contract, Ottawa is taking everything and all of it.
Yeah, and we'll see what if Ottawa really needs to do that. That's going to be really quite interesting for sure. So,
Yeah. They're you know what? I don't know what their chances are. Obviously, we'll have to wait till the regular season starts, but I think they have a real shot at the 2009 Stanley Cup.
2009. Wow.
Well, I mean, Marlowe, Corey Perry, if Marion Gaborik gets his life together, Bobby Ryan, it could be.
Mike Richards, let's throw him on there too.
Jerk is calling me out saying, buy a Radil jersey, you coward. Okay, I will do this. I will do that if you spend the same amount of money. Let's go to Nevada, and you take the same amount of money that jersey will cost me, and you bet on the Coyotes to win the 2019-2020 Stanley Cup, pal.
Oh,
Tell him that my DMs are open.
all right.
His DMs are
Jerk-
open.
Yeah. Jerk says his DMs are open.
Guys, I have a quick question just before we start to wrap it up here.
Yep.
Do we go back to, or do we go to a 4-team division when Seattle comes in?
No.
So you want eight divisions in the league? So
Yeah.
4 in West, 4 in.
God,
That would
we're gonna
make-
run out of names.
That would make the All-Star game very interesting.
Yes, the All-Star game would have an incredibly crazy format.
Yeah.
I
I wish I could hear Jerk. This sucks. No, you stay at 4. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, can we just go a little while without like screwing up something?
And that's the thing too, is if you look at it at the Pacific, once Seattle gets in on the West Coast, I mean, before the Sharks came in, it was pretty much Vancouver and LA. Now it's Vancouver, Seattle, San Jose, LA, Anaheim,
Vegas.
You have 6 teams that are in the Pacific time zone. I mean, it's borderline almost balanced out with the West and the East now. With the
But you still got Edmonton and Calgary.
See,
Yeah.
I like the idea of 8 divisions with 4 teams each for a couple of reasons. Number one, you theoretically would have a division or a conference or a cluster, whatever you want to call it, with
cluster, yes.
with you'd have Tampa Bay, Florida, and Carolina, but then all of a sudden Nashville could rightfully so be in a division with those 3 other teams. Think about how far away Nashville is. Nashville is like the new Detroit, where they're in the West and they're supposed to compete, but they're way the hell over there. I think too, if you have like Seattle, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton, you have those got 4 just duking it out, 6 times a year or whatever. That could be fun. Same thing. You've got California and you've got Vegas tearing it up. That could be fantastic. My one complaint about the 8 division conference cluster team ups, whatever, is most likely you have to expand the regular season from 82 to 84 games.
All right. Yeah, you'd have to go. Yeah, get 2 extra games.
And AJ and I have had this talk for years about how they would have to expand the schedule somehow. But yeah, I like what you're thinking there with having the Pacific Northwest teams, kind of all clustered together, the California teams plus Nevada all together. It'll be a genius move to have the Florida teams with Nashville and Carolina.
Dude, Jerry F in the chat bringing up an amazing point. Imagine the amount of banners teams could hoist now for X division champions. I mean, if you double the amount of divisions, that's double banners, people.
Banners per 60 would go up.
Yeah, and then banners for 60, and then you also have like the tri-state, the tri-state area
Oh, Christ
division.
almighty.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's
I
gonna-
just
crazy.
just a thought. I didn't want to go
No,
too far down the rabbit hole. But
It's funny, like, because I'm surprised like there's not some sort of like fun kind of banner thing where it's like whichever, whether it's San Jose, LA, Anaheim, whatever team wins the most games out of the three, it's like a little kind of intra-squad or interstate fun, kind of like the Stanford Axe kind of a deal where there's some banner that each team gets to hold it for that season if they won the most. You can do the same thing with Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton or whatever. Like I could see something funny like that happening. That's kind of, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just, something else fun to do. But let's wrap this up, guys.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. All right. So, Jerk, I appreciate you coming on and divulging your wealth of knowledge. Your final thoughts on where the people can find you.
So wow, okay, $11.5 million a year for 8 years. That's really something. Highest paid defenseman in NHL history, highest paid player in Sharks history, fourth highest paid player in the current NHL, behind obviously Austin Matthews, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and God knows who else. So the Sharks are running out of money, but I still think it's okay. Because like the four of us have talked about, Doug Wilson finds a way to make things happen. He gets you in the chair and pulls out a couple teeth and you're all set, ready to go. Trades are a thing. Buyouts are a thing. Like I say, there's no guarantee that other teams want the players you want to trade. But on the flip side, for all we know, GMX, whoever, has been hitting up Doug Wilson every draft day for the last 3 years saying, hey, can we get Justin Braun? And maybe this is the year that it happens. Nobody knows for sure. Whatever day the schedule comes out, whatever day the first game is, October, whatever, the team's going to look different, but I don't think full panic mode needs to go in. I still think the Sharks are very good, very competitive, and bringing back Erik Karlsson, as much as I'm not really a fan of, the semantics behind it, I still think it was the right thing to do if the Sharks want to win a Stanley Cup. So we'll see. If you enjoy understanding the salary cap and want to know more, you can follow me on Twitter at Hucky_jerk. Making things happen. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be really fun. The draft is going to be hot. So you'll want to stay tuned to your streaming devices because you never know what could happen.
Yep. And we might have a draft special on Friday after round one, even if the Sharks aren't in it. Mr. Landy, your final thoughts on where the people can find you. Eric, his name with the right way.
Final thoughts are, I just have to say the laundry helped with the re-signing. Okay. It can't agree enough with what Jerk was saying. And stay tuned for some fireworks, guys. I think that we're going to see something happen Sharks related at the draft. And I think it's going to be pretty big. As far as where you can find me, use my first name. That's Eric spelled the right way. Last name Landy at all the social media garbages, and you can add me there.
All right. Thank you, Landy. Mr. AJ Strong. Your final thoughts on where the people can find you.
Oh, please. Oh, my God. So many thoughts. I still don't know how I feel about this deal. Talk to me again about it in 2 years, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
You can find me at AJ_strong on all the social media platforms. Bring it. Come after me. Come look at me. It's all good. For those of you who didn't take me up on the bet, oh, well, maybe next time. We'll have to come up with something else. And I'm sure we will. But yeah, that's where we can find me on all there. And that's probably it for right now. But chances are we will be doing something between now and draft. And remember, if something else happens, it's a very short few days between now and July 1st, and anything can happen, as we have seen time and time again. So look for us at Tealtown USA, all the social media platforms. Besides subscribing here, Might want to turn on your Twitter notifications as well, because we tend to go live when big news happens.
Yes, absolutely. In case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher. And boy, howdy, did this age well. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and of course, Spotify. You can hit us up on there as well. We do have a trade to announce. Jacob Trouba has been sent to the New York Rangers in exchange for Neil Pionk. Hopefully, I'm saying that right, Jerk. And the 20th overall pick in this year's draft. So
let the trades begin.
Yeah, the trades have begun. Trouba from Winnipeg to the Rangers, as the Rangers start making their way, and maybe this was their backup plan after Erik Karlsson signed with the Sharks. To reiterate, that's the big top story tonight. Karlsson is going to be a Shark for 8 years at $11.5 million per. We shall be back probably at least a couple more times this week, Wednesday and maybe Friday. And then, of course, Monday is when the regular season schedule will come out, where AJ and I will get together and plan your lives for the next 10 months.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Will the NHL figure out a way for the San Jose Sharks to play in Southern California back-to-back 2 years in a row? Can they do that back-to-back, back-to-back? I would
Paging
like to see
Steve Hatcher-Petros.
Yes. And I noticed somebody's paying attention, because as I'm talking, I just got a request for a follow on Instagram. So thank you.
Yes. All right. You can also follow me at PuckGuy14 on the Instagram and on the Twitter machine. We will be back with you later this week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell that notifies you when we go on the air. And until then, thanks for watching. Keep it real. Keep it teal. Keep it real teal. You have a wonderful night, everyone.